Good afternoon. My name is Warren Boykin, and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, which we call Get to Know NAMI. I am the Program and Outreach Coordinator for NAMI Northern Illinois, which is located here in Rockford, Illinois. And I'd like to thank you all for coming and participating in the webinar. Because this is a webinar, we'd like you to enter any questions that you may have in the question and answer tab at the bottom of your screen, or perhaps the chat box if you choose to do so. This is my first experience doing this type of a webinar, which we call leading the conversation. So it's a weekly podcast, and we hope to have many community leaders concerned with the area of mental health. And of course, this is Mental Health Awareness Month in May. And so we've had lots of opportunities to interact with the public and extend the conversation about NAMI's work. I have a presentation that I'd like to share with you. And it will tell you a little bit about the background and history of NAMI Northern Illinois. So let's begin. All right, NAMI, which is short for the National Alliance on Mental Illness, is the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization. Our vision is to envision a world where all persons affected by mental illness live healthy, fulfilling lives supported by a community that cares. Now, I have a short video that I'd like to share with you.
Each year, 1 in 5 U.S. adults experience mental illness, and 17% of youth ages 6 to 17 experience a mental health disorder.
I joined NAMI because I have 2 sons that live with a mental illness, and I didn't want any other families to feel alone like I did.
At NAMI, the first thing we want anyone to know is you are not alone in your mental health journey.
I just really want to talk about so people know that you don't have to go through it alone.
NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, is the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization, dedicated to building better lives for the millions of Americans affected by mental illness. We started as 2 moms, gathered around a kitchen table in 1979, and today, we are an alliance of more than 600 local affiliates and 48 state organizations who work in your community to raise awareness, build advocacy, and provide support and education. NAMI envisions a world where all people affected by mental illness live healthy, fulfilling lives supported by a community that cares. Every year we are expanding, no matter race, religion, age, or sexual identity. We are people with lived experience, families and loved ones, survivors and advocates, and together, we will fight the stigma surrounding mental health and create a better world for the sake of all of us. We have resources for you and can't wait to become an extension of your family. We are here for a healthier world. We are here for better mental health. We are here for each other. Join us. Each year, 1 in 5 U.S.
So you heard the statistics. 1 in 5 people in the United States experience mental illness each year. Well, what's the result of that? Well, 1 out of 8 visits to U.S. emergency departments are related to mental health and substance use disorders. 40% 44% of individuals incarcerated in local jails have a diagnosed mental illness. And 70% of youth in our juvenile justice system have at least one mental health condition. Now, normally we wouldn't read all of these statistics to you because you can read them yourselves. However, I think these numbers are striking. 21% of the people experiencing homelessness also have a serious or chronic mental illness. And of course, depression is the leading cause of disability in the world. Suicide is the 10th leading cause overall and the second leading cause of death for ages 10 through 34. And 90% of people who die by suicide have experienced symptoms of mental illness. So since mental illness is a part of our name and something that we've discussed so much so far, what is meant by mental illness? Well, it might be different than what you're thinking, but mental illness describes a wide range of conditions that negatively affect your mood, your thinking, and behavior. Of course, many of us who've worked in the medical field are familiar with the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, which clinicians use to categorize mental health conditions. But I think many of us are familiar with things like, well, we've used the term depression. We've talked about anxiety. Those are common mental illnesses, which probably were not considered illnesses when I was younger. But they do center on brain function. Well, as opposed to mental illness, this is Mental Health Awareness Month. So let's talk about the difference between mental illness and mental health. Mental health describes emotional, psychological, and social well-being instead of negatively affecting. These are positive effects on our thinking, the way we feel, and the way we act. It also talks about how we handle stress and relate to others and the healthy choices that we make. So mental health is important at every stage of health, from childhood and adolescence through adulthood. So how does this relate to NAMI? Well, in 1979, in Madison, Wisconsin, you saw the pictures of the two ladies who began at their kitchen table. That was Harriet Shelter and Beverly Young. They were getting together because of the state of mental health care in this country. As relatives of people with serious mental health conditions, they felt that they could help each other and help their loved ones as well by banding together. And it began small, and it began in this part of the country. The concept began to grow, and in 1984, NAMI Northern Illinois was founded, again, based on helping family members of people with serious mental health conditions. And until the year 2015, NAMI was entirely run by volunteers. We still are largely a volunteer organization with a total of 3 employees, myself being one of them at this time. But imagine the mission We cover 3 counties in northern Illinois, Boone, Winnebago, and Stevenson County. And to do that with 1 or 3 persons would be impossible. So we count largely on volunteers. And one of my jobs as program and outreach coordinator is to try and encourage people to volunteer and to try and organize that effort. Of course, I'm new at this position, so we'll see how that goes over time. So what is our mission? Well, NAMI Northern Illinois is dedicated to improving the lives of individuals living with mental illness and their families through support, education, advocacy, and hope. Our belief is that mental illness is no one's fault, and that the full view of a person must include their biological, psychological, and social dimensions. So that includes what they have inherited from their parents, plus their emotions and how they interact with others. We also believe that the emergence of mental illness is a traumatic experience, both for the individual experiencing it and for that person's family, that person's loved ones. Now, we finally believe that the best mental health care is collaborative, a collaborative effort between the individual, their family, and the mental health professionals. Well, currently, this is a list of some of the groups that NAMI Northern Illinois has functioning at this time. There is the NAMI Connection Recovery Support Group for adults aged 18 and over. The Family Support Group for those who are supporting a loved one with mental illness. Grupo Apoyo Familiar de NAMI is the family support group in Spanish. Again, these are for persons who are supporting a family member or a loved one who has a mental illness. And unique to the NAMI Northern Illinois is the parent and caregiver support. This is to support parents of younger children who have mental illness. Now, another unique feature of NAMI Northern Illinois is that we have merged together with Group Hope. Group Hope was an organization that was operating support groups in the Rockford area for more than 25 years. And in order to have more of a lasting structure, or just to benefit both sides, Group Hope has joined together with NAMI, and they have an adult Group Hope meeting, which meets twice a week at this time, and Teen Group Hope, which gives us a support group for persons, believe the ages 13 to 19. So what's the value of a support group, you may ask? Well, as a facilitator of the adult Group Hope, of the NAMI Connection support group for over 10 years, I've learned that it is very beneficial for people to come together and share their common experience in recovery. It's good for people to be able to sit down with others who have that common experience and who won't judge you as being less than because you're experiencing difficulty, or and other times you may just want to share your successes. Um, and it's good to be able to talk with others who know how difficult the struggle is. So one of the benefits, well, one of the many benefits is that it is free of cost to the participants, as are all of NAMI's educational and support offerings. And very important is that it is confidential. Um, what's said in the group stays in the group. And yet the groups are led by peers, other individuals living with a mental health condition themselves or a mental illness. No specific medical treatment or therapy is recommended or endorsed. We don't criticize or put down the medical practice that the person's experiencing. We simply provide support. We aim for better coping skills, and we find strength in sharing our experiences. Now, the support groups I mentioned, teen, adult, family, and for the individual, is one aspect. Another aspect that is very helpful is education. NAMI provides a class called Family to Family, which is taught by family members who have supported individuals who have a mental illness. And we have text that is written by experts, but the instructors are also people who have that lived experience that can tell you that there is hope. There's also a connection that is established between the members of the class. They provide mutual support, similar to a support group, while you learn vital information. Again, the groups are compassionate because the other class members are going through the difficulty of supporting a loved one through this traumatic experience of having a mental illness. The family to family class teaches you how to manage the crises which may arise and how to solve problems and communicate more effectively. Of course, taking care of oneself while you attempt to take care of others is very important, and also teaches how to manage stress. Developing compassion for that loved one who is dealing with the mental health issue, and also being able to effectively advocate for your loved one's rights are things that you will learn in our family to family and even in the NAMI basics class. So we'll talk about those in more detail later. Community outreach events or programs include NAMI Ending the Silence, which is a program where people with lived experience go into schools and talk about how one can successfully navigate the education system despite having a mental illness. The provider education seminar is a 4-hour version of what could be a 6-week class. Of course, when I say 6 weeks, I mean it meets over the course of 6 weeks, but it's 1 day per week. And the provider education seminar is designed to help people who provide services or care to individuals with mental health conditions, and to teach us how to collaborate effectively with family, with the individual, and of course, how to take care of ourselves as mental health providers. I sometimes speak as a provider because in my former career, before working for NAMI, I worked on the psychiatric unit of the inpatient psychiatric unit of a local hospital for many, many years. So I can see things from that provider standpoint, but also being able to see things as what they used to call a consumer or a person living with a mental health condition uh, is a slightly different perspective. And we'll talk about that again in just a moment when we take a look at our NAMI website. We have other community education workshops, which we present in conjunction with local organizations who deal with mental health and wellness. We have collaborations with organizations like the Forest City Float, which has the sensory deprivation tank and you float in salt water. Basically, if there is an organization which deals with wellness and health, we feel that we'd like to join together with you as a collaborator and help promote health and wellness throughout the city. So if you have that type of a business, we're interested in working with you. We have presentation and resources that we go to health fairs and community gatherings to raise awareness about mental illness and to reduce the stigma that is associated with seeking help or support in cases of mental health concerns. NAMI FaithNet is an organization of volunteers who work together with houses of faith with different denominations and go out to different churches, synagogues, mosques, and present information on mental health from a faith-based perspective. So these are people who find that faith is an important component of their mental health. And we know that, as the statistics say, if 1 out of 5 Americans is experiencing mental illness during the year, that affects people in faith communities as well. And finally, the In Our Own Voice program is where people with lived experience in mental health or even substance abuse recovery can be trained to share their story in such a way that it helps others find hope. And those In Our Own Voice speakers can speak to businesses, community organizations, wherever they're invited. And they go out to tell the story of how the NAMI organization, our alliance, can help promote wellness and reduce stigma, even in businesses and schools. Now, we talked about the ways that NAMI and NAMI Northern Illinois works to promote the health of individuals living with mental illness. And one of those ways is through advocacy, working with public policymakers to advance the issues and ensure that the voice of people affected by mental illness is heard. Improving access to services and promoting early intervention. Also, we saw that number of people who end up in the criminal justice system, and that number is unfortunately very high in our country. Well, those numbers are at crisis levels, and we would like to see those, well, the treatment of individuals involved in the legal system. We'd like to see their mental health care considered and improved. Also, supporting work of inclusion and non-discrimination through working with organizations like RAMP, and just recently in the Illinois House of Representatives, one of our NAMI board members, Laura Kane, sponsored a bill called the Zachary's Parent Protection Act, which was just passed and provides protection for the jobs of parents who whose child has been lost to suicide, and it provides for I believe it's 6 months of job protection while a person deals with the after effects of losing a child. We work to advocate for individuals. And we'll talk about the addition of a new mental health advocate, Kinsey White. She may be referred to by her maiden name as she just got married this past weekend, but we'll see on the next slide. And of course, I mentioned our education programs. Well, like other nonprofit organizations, we do have outreach and other activities such as membership. You can become a member of NAMI for as little as $5 per year. And I feel that the most important tab on the NAMI website is the Get Involved tab. Of course, there's fundraising events, sure, actually pretty fun. This past week, they had a fundraiser at the Pizza Ranch in Roscoe. I was doing a support group, so I wasn't able to attend that, so I was a little disappointed, but I hear the food was really good and the fellowship is wonderful too. We have annual events as program and outreach coordinator. I'll be helping to try and organize more of those type of events, but we just had our annual membership meeting last Tuesday, 1 week ago, and that featured an attorney from the Guardianship and Advocacy Commission, who is the person who fights for the rights of people who are involuntarily hospitalized, and makes sure that all of the legal rights of those individuals are protected. And so she came to talk. Her name was Laurel Spahn, is Laurel Spahn, and she came to discuss the mental health code. So that was a very interesting event. It was well attended and well received. Annually, there is Mental Illness Awareness Week in October. And we hope to act as a local resource room, and NAMI has now incorporated the NAMI helpline, which will help refer you to one of the NAMI affiliates in your area if you don't happen to be in Northern Illinois. One of the changes I think that we might say is, instead of having a resource room, we have an advocate. As I mentioned, her name is excuse me. I froze up here for a second. Kinsey White, and let me give you some contact information. The phone number that you may want to call or write down is 815-963-2470. And we have a new phone system, which is kind of the bane of my existence at the moment. But I'm hoping to learn how to operate it better. If you call and you're having audio trouble, just call back. You can press the number 1 for Kinsey, I believe, the number 2 for me, and the number 3 for our executive director, Danielle Angelari. When they mentioned the beginnings where we only had one paid employee, for a long time, that was Danielle. And Danielle has done a magnificent job of heading our organization through expansion, and has big dreams for our future as well. Our new email address is info@naminorthernillinois.org, and our website is www.naminorthernillinois.org. And you can see our mailing address for those of you who still use snail mail. Actually, I wanted to check to see if there were any questions. And I see we have a number of participants out there in the cyberspace. But as I mentioned before, if you have any questions, you can type them into the Q&A, or you can well, I can activate your microphone if you'd like to give the question verbally. Now, one other thing that I'd like to share with you at this time are some of the resources that we have available on our website. So I'm going to share my screen again and just show you how you probably will first interact with NAMI. The program's called Get to Know NAMI. And this morning, I just went to my mobile device. It's a little bit different on the computer, but I think you'll get the gist. All right. So here you can see our NAMI.org website. This is the home screen. And one of the neat things that I saw immediately from the NAMI.org website was the blog. The first blog entry is the comforting and frustrating realization that you are not alone, which I thought is a clever perception. There are other posts such as early psychosis intervention. I wish they'd seen it sooner, growing up undiagnosed, navigating early recovery from schizophrenia. And you can see that there are various categories. These are written by people with lived experience, NAMI members, and you can submit to the NAMI blog. Let me see if I can show you other entries as well. I just found that these are very interesting, and there are a myriad of voices, articles that cover, it seems like, every aspect of dealing with mental health issues. All right, now these are discussions from the CEO of NAMI, how to show up for teenagers with record levels of sadness. Mental health matters in the historically Black colleges and universities. Intersection of faith and mental health. Also issues for frontline personnel. How to bend but not break. 7 traits of resilient people. Documenting the traumas of first responders. And strengthening through the creative arts. Now, that is something else that I failed to mention before. There are other programs that NAMI offers online. I mentioned that we do have something called NAMI Basics online. That is the class for parents. It's a parenting class, which teaches parents about raising a child with a mental illness or mental health diagnosis of some sort. They can be very difficult, but it can also be difficult to get away for a class if you're trying to raise a child or if you have other children at home. So they've offered the mental health, the NAMI Basics class online. Another resource, it's not offered here locally, but it's called NAMI Frontline, and it's actually for, NAMI Homefront. And that is for military personnel. And it is a full mental health education class that a person can register and take online at any time. All right, so I mentioned NAMI Basics. That is offered online in this area. Other areas offer it in person, and we're hoping to get back to in person soon. Of course, some of our classes, they switched to online because of the pandemic. Well, NAMI Peer-to-Peer is also a class which we don't offer at this time, but we're hoping to institute soon. And NAMI Provider is the same way. I mentioned that we have a 4-hour PowerPoint version of this. That's called the NAMI Provider Seminar. But if we hope to, just as we hope to get NAMI Peer-to-Peer going, we hope to get NAMI Provider in a format where we can do that class in person. Just again, to reiterate, NAMI Ending the Silence is a program designed for middle and high school students and for their school staff and guardians and parents. It says audiences learn about the signs and symptoms of mental health conditions, how to recognize the early warning signs, and the importance of acknowledging those warning signs. We have a very vibrant In Our Own Voice program. As a matter of fact, I will be going along with several other recent candidates to be trained for In Our Own Voice, which will teach us how to promote awareness of mental health conditions and recovery. And that program is also available in Spanish. Compartiendo Esperanza is a bilingual presentation for Latino communities to promote mental health awareness. And NAMI Sharing Hope is another program that we will be instituting soon. It's the presentation for African American communities designed to promote mental health awareness. And again, exploring those signs and symptoms. Well, as you can see, there are just a plethora of programs and presentations that NAMI offers. Now, one reason that we don't offer all of the programs and presentations is because of a need for more volunteers and staff. So one of the most common questions I encounter is, how can I get involved? How can I help? Well, the most important thing is basically to contact us and just join with us. It's an alliance. I call it the Rebel Alliance. So what we're going to do is we are going to utilize the talents and the abilities of all the people who join. But it may not be that you'll just have to follow on to an existing program. You may have to help us build the structure. So we have a lot of longtime volunteers who have helped establish and run NAMI to this point. We are also engaging with a lot of community organizations and providers, but we're just getting started, really. I mentioned Kinsey White. She and I were basically hired as a result of the Winnebago County Mental Health Board providing a grant, which allowed NAMI to triple its staff. But that was given out last October. So although we haven't had a lot of time yet, Kinsey, I believe at the last gathering of providers, mentioned that she had, I believe, talked to 80 clients in their first month. And we have a system where she actually acts as she follows those persons that contact her to make sure that they've received the help that they need. So that's what a mental health advocate does, not just to refer people to a phone number or a website, but she actually talks to the people, make sure that they are clearly understood. And once she understands what they need, she will work with them to make sure that those concerns are followed up on. I mentioned also our collaboration with community organizations. Tomorrow I get a chance to talk to Nurses Week at UW Health here in Rockford. Last week we had an In Our Own Voice presentation at Javon Bay, Mercy Health Hospital out on Riverside. We are engaging with Housing Authority. We've done advocacy work with the mayor and with state senators, the Regional Planning Council. It goes on. And the work basically never ends because we have a massive job in front of us. And we really want to change the way mental health is both perceived in this area and how it works for our community. So, in short, we want we want you. We want you to get involved. Please give us a call. Our number is 815-963-2470. Ask for Warren or Kinsey or Danielle, and we will hopefully be able to help you to address your concerns. We not only want you as an individual, but if you have a company that you work for or work with that you feel could use or could help in this fight against stigma and to raise awareness of mental illness and mental health in our community, there is a program called the Stigma-Free Workplace. There are things, there's NAMI Walks, which is a fundraising event. There's so many different programs, and really all we need is you. Given that and a little time, I think we can build a great resource for our community through NAMI. The groundwork is there. I forgot to mention, coming up in June is NAMI's national convention, NAMICon. I attended last year virtually. This year will also be available virtually. I'm not sure who the keynote speaker is this year. Last year it was Mayim Bialik. You may know her as Blossom or from the show Cat's Cafe. I can't remember the name. Call Me Cat, excuse me. And Mayim also has a blog, excuse me, I guess it's called a blog, a podcast, that's it, a weekly podcast on mental health called Mayim Bialik's Breakdown. She is, oh, I forgot, she was on The Big Bang Theory as well. And she has a PhD in neuroscience. So she's very interested in mental health. Well, I have talked for a long time and hopefully have answered some questions, helped you get to know NAMI Northern Illinois a little bit better. The only thing else that I feel that I may have neglected would be to give enough credit to the people who helped institute this great organization here. We've had volunteers who've basically built the structure that we are building upon and or laid the foundation for what we hope will be a very useful structure to get more advocacy for mental health and wellness in our area. Well, again, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please You can email us at info@naminorthernillinois.org or visit our website, www.naminorthernillinois.org. Well, if there are no more questions, I will end our podcast a little bit early. I'll give you a chance to get some lunch in this lunch and learn session. Thank you. And our next extending or our next podcast in a week. I always forget what is it, initiating the conversation. Our next session will be in a week, and we'll have Laura Kane, the aforementioned Laura Kane of Marshmallows Hope, talking about the mission of her foundation and some of the great things that she's doing in conjunction with NAMI. So thanks, everybody. Have a great day.